Some stories in Hollywood disappear over time, but others come back years later, heavier, sadder, and impossible to forget. Demi Moore is 62 years old now, and she's finally talking about things she never talked about before, not in her 20s, 30s, or even 40s. For the very first time, she's telling us what really happened when she was married to Ashton Kutcher. The secrets she kept hidden, the hurt she felt inside, and the truth she tried to protect for way too long. What she stayed quiet about for almost 20 years is now being told, and it's changing everything we thought we knew about their love story. When Demi Moore first met Ashton Kutcher in May 2003, she was 40 years old. She was still trying to feel better after her divorce from Bruce Willis, which had been really hard on her. Ashton was only 25 years old when he came into her life. He was warm, sweet, and charming, things she hadn't felt in a long time. He listened to her. He looked up to her. He seemed to really care about her. At least that's what it looked like. Their first big conversation lasted 8 whole hours. They felt connected to each other right away, and Demi believed she had found someone who loved her for who she really was, even the broken parts of her. Within just a few weeks, Ashton met her daughters and even met Bruce Willis, which almost never happens in Hollywood when people get divorced. By the time they got married on September 24, 2005, everyone in the world was calling them the perfect modern fairy tale. They mixed their families together, started a business together, and said nice things about each other in public, like their relationship had changed the rules of love. But behind that picture-perfect image, something sad and private had already started to go wrong. Just 2 years before their wedding, Demi went through something terrible. She had a miscarriage when she was 6 months pregnant. They had already picked out a name for the baby, Chaplain Ray. Losing the baby shook both of them really badly. Demi blamed herself for what happened. She had been sober, meaning she hadn't used alcohol or drugs for almost 20 years. But she said in interviews later that she had sometimes smoked and drank a little bit early in the pregnancy. She never stopped wondering if she was the reason her baby died. That guilt became like an invisible wall between her and Ashton, even though they tried things like IVF, a medical way to try to have babies, fertility treatments, and even thought about adoption. Ashton said that losing the baby made him realize he was ready to be a dad, but Demi felt like it pushed her into a dark emotional place she had never been in before. This tragedy was the first crack in their marriage, a wound that neither of them knew how to fix. And as time went on, it became clear that this heartbreak wasn't the darkest secret she would end up carrying for him. The miscarriage left Demi Moore feeling fragile and weak inside. Instead of getting better, she started falling back into old bad habits she had fought so hard to escape from. After almost 20 years of staying sober, she relapsed. What started as having a drink when she felt sad turned into a slow breakdown. She started using alcohol, prescription pills, and blaming herself for everything, which made her feel empty inside. At first, Ashton tried to comfort her and help her feel better. But over time, he became distant in ways she didn't really understand. The young man who once felt like her hero now felt far away and unreachable. Demi was desperate to save their marriage, so she started doing anything she thought would make him want to stay with her. In her 2019 book called Inside Out, she told one of the deepest, most painful secrets she had kept for years. Ashton had asked her to have threesomes, that means inviting other people into their intimate relationship. She agreed to it because she believed that giving him what he wanted would fix the distance between them. But instead, every time she compromised like this, she felt smaller, emptier, and more disconnected from who she really was. She later admitted that these decisions left her feeling ashamed, confused, and questioning if she was worth anything at all. The tension between them got worse as Ashton kept pushing the idea that their marriage should be open-minded and modern. While Demi felt like she was losing who she was as a person, her attempts to be everything he wanted slowly erased the woman she used to be. And as she started spiraling deeper into addiction, Ashton pulled away even more, a pattern that only made her more afraid that she wasn't enough for him anymore. Behind closed doors, the emotional distance started to feel like a silent storm brewing. Ashton traveled more, stayed out late more often, and started living like a man who didn't feel tied down to his marriage vows anymore. Demi could sense it. The late-night times when he wasn't home, the excuses he made, the growing coldness in his voice, it all pointed to a truth she wasn't ready to face. Her daughters started to worry about her. They watched their mother shrink and fade under the weight of fear, guilt, and emotional abandonment. What had once been a home full of laughter from their blended family slowly turned into a space filled with tension and pain that nobody talked about. But the darkest, most painful blow was still waiting for her. And when it finally came, it shattered whatever little strength she had left. By 2011, 6 years into their marriage, Demi Moore was barely holding on. She was still trying to show a united, happy front to the public. She was still pretending that everything at home was stable, loving, and whole. But her world fell apart on September 24, 2011, the day that should have been their sixth wedding anniversary. Instead of celebrating their life together, Demi woke up to a nightmare she never expected. A Google alert on her phone showed her that Ashton Kutcher had spent the night with a 22-year-old woman named Sarah Leal. The news hit her like someone had punched her. What made it even worse was that Demi had actually seen this girl before. She had been bold enough to hand Ashton her phone number at a bowling alley right in front of Demi and her daughter. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. And when Ashton confessed, there was no denying it anymore. He had cheated on her. But the darkest part of this moment wasn't even the affair itself. It was the excuse Ashton gave her afterward. He told her that the threesome she had agreed to earlier in their marriage had blurred the lines. It was as if her attempt to make him happy, to keep him close, to bend and twist herself into whatever shape he needed, all of that had somehow justified him cheating on her. For Demi, those words cut deeper than the cheating itself. They turned all her sacrifices into blame. They made it seem like it was her fault. And this wasn't the only affair. She later found out about another woman, a 21-year-old named Brittany Jones. This was an earlier time he had cheated that she hadn't fully understood back then. Ashton had been drifting away from her long before she realized the distance between them was permanent. Just days after the scandal became public, Demi was forced to stand beside Ashton at a charity event about stopping human trafficking, and she had to pretend everything was fine. Inside, she was breaking into pieces. The public didn't see her shaking hands backstage, the panic attacks she tried to hide, or the way she struggled to breathe under the pressure of keeping up a lie she could no longer bear. On November 17, 2011, she finally announced that they were separating. She said she needed to stay true to her values, words that seemed simple on the surface, but underneath carried the weight of a woman who had been pushed way past her limits. What came next wasn't healing. It was the darkest, most painful time of her entire life, one that almost ended everything. The end of her marriage didn't bring Demi relief. It brought devastation, total destruction. After almost 20 years of being sober, she had already started slipping during the marriage. But the betrayal and public humiliation pushed her into a complete collapse. On January 23, 2012, that collapse became impossible to hide anymore. Demi had a seizure during a party at her home in Benedict Canyon. It was brought on by a dangerous mix of synthetic cannabis, fake weed, nitrous oxide, a drug people sometimes call laughing gas, and weeks of barely eating anything at all. Guests watched in shock as she convulsed, shook uncontrollably on the floor. The 911 call that followed marked the beginning of the darkest years of her life. In the months after that, Demi's addiction got much worse. She was taking up to a dozen Vicodin pills every day, a strong painkiller, mixing them with vodka and energy drinks. She became obsessed with losing weight, staring at herself in the mirror for hours, convinced she needed to be thinner, smaller, almost invisible. Her weight dropped to around 102 pounds. The combination of being exhausted, malnourished, and on drugs caused more seizures and scary health problems. She pulled away from public life completely. She disappeared from events, skipped press appearances, and avoided everyone she loved. The collapse didn't just affect Demi. It destroyed her relationship with her daughters. Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah described those years as absolutely terrifying. They didn't recognize the woman their mother had become. She talked differently, moved differently, and acted like someone who wasn't fully present or there. Talula later said her mother felt like a monster, not because she was mean or cruel, but because addiction had changed her so drastically. The pain became so overwhelming that the girls had to distance themselves for their own safety and well-being. In 2012, they cut off contact with her completely. None of them came to Demi's 50th Earth Day party. She missed Rumor's important life moments, Scout's achievements, and all the everyday moments that used to bond them together as a family. The silence between them stretched on for nearly 3 years. Finally, in September 2012, Demi went to a place called Cirque Lodge in Utah, a luxury rehab center that cost $150,000 every single month. But even that didn't repair her relationships with her daughters right away. Healing wouldn't really begin until 2015 when Talula, who had just gotten out of rehab herself, reached out to her mother for the first time in years. But even as Demi fought her way back to being alive and healthy again, another truth about Ashton, a truth she had protected for years, would come back up and change everything we thought we knew about their marriage. As Demi slowly rebuilt her life after 2015, she did something she hadn't done in years. She began to speak honestly about what happened. Therapy, rehabilitation, and the long, painful process of reconnecting with her daughters forced her to face memories she had buried under addiction, grief, and fear. And as she opened up in family counseling sessions, then in interviews, and eventually in her 2019 book Inside Out, one truth kept coming back up again and again, the truth she had spent more than 10 years protecting. It wasn't just that Ashton Kutcher had cheated on her. It wasn't just about the threesomes, the excuses he made, or the emotional distance between them. It was something deeper, something that shaped every single decision she made during those years. Demi felt like she had been manipulated, tricked, and controlled into believing she wasn't enough. Not young enough, not wild enough, not modern enough to keep the man she loved. In her book, she revealed that Ashton often made comments about their age difference, making jokes that didn't really feel like jokes. He told her that monogamy, being with only one person, wasn't practical or realistic. He subtly encouraged her to lower her boundaries and standards. Demi admitted that she accepted things she never would have accepted earlier in her life. She didn't do these things because she wanted to, but because she was afraid of losing him. This emotional erosion, this slow wearing away of who she was, became the darkest secret of their marriage. Demi hid how deeply she was compromising herself, giving up pieces of herself bit by bit, until she barely recognized the woman she had become. The miscarriage haunted Demi for years, and she revealed that Ashton didn't fully understand her grief, the deep sadness she felt. This distance made her blame herself even more. She confessed that she believed losing their baby was her failure, a burden she carried silently while Ashton moved forward with his life, traveling, working, and living freely. Even after they separated, Demi kept quiet about his behavior. She didn't speak publicly about the cheating. She didn't talk about the threesomes. She didn't mention the emotional manipulation. She tried to protect him, protect his image, and protect the years they had shared together. It wasn't until she turned 56, and then later at 62, that she finally let herself say the things she had kept buried deep inside. She didn't do it to destroy him or expose him publicly. She did it to reclaim, to take back, the parts of herself she had lost along the way. Her confession wasn't about revenge or getting back at him. It was about truth and healing. By the time Demi Moore reached her early 60s, everything about her life had changed. Not just her career or her relationships with other people, but the way she understood herself. After years of staying silent, she realized that telling the truth wasn't about exposing Ashton Kutcher or making him look bad. It was about freeing the version of herself she had abandoned along the way. And as surprising as it might seem, healing didn't come from anger. It came from clarity, from seeing things clearly and understanding what really happened. In 2020, Ashton publicly said there was no badness between them and that he loved and respected Demi's daughters. He admitted that getting divorced made him feel like a failure, especially after the miscarriage they had gone through together. His words didn't erase the past or make everything okay, but they revealed something important. Neither of them had walked away from the marriage without wounds. The fallout, the aftermath, had shaped them both. In 2022, Demi took another unexpected step toward healing when she appeared in a Super Bowl commercial alongside Mila Kunis, who is Ashton's wife now. Instead of resentment and bitterness, the moment was marked by humor and maturity, acting grown-up about the situation. The two women joked about their shared past, showing the world that moving forward was possible without holding grudges. And behind the scenes, Demi and Mila actually built an unlikely friendship. They even started a book club together. Then came 2025, the year Dems. I finally spoke openly about the darkest parts of her relationship with Ashton. Not just the cheating or the threesomes, but the emotional self-erasure she had lived through. That means she slowly gave up who she was as a person. She described how she had slowly given up her boundaries, her self-worth, and even her voice, all in an attempt to keep a man who was never meant to complete her or make her whole. This, she revealed, was the real secret she had carried all those years. She had lost herself long before she lost her marriage. But this time she shared the truth from a place of strength, not sorrow or sadness. She had rebuilt her relationship with her daughters. She had healed old wounds. She had learned to love herself again, embracing what she called solo partnering, a commitment to being whole and complete without relying on another person to fill the emptiness inside her. At 62 years old, Demi Moore didn't just reveal Ashton Kutcher's darkest secret. She revealed her own secret too, that staying silent had cost her more than just heartbreak. And speaking out, finally telling the truth, was the final step toward reclaiming her life and becoming herself again. Demi Moore's journey reminds us that even the strongest people can lose themselves when they're in love, and they can still find the courage to rise up again and rebuild their lives. What do you think was the most painful moment in her story? Let me know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to see more Hollywood stories like this one.